is being recorded. Only myself, our moderator, and panelists will be on the recorded screen. If you do not want to be seen, you can turn your camera off. Welcome to the post-film program for Xueta Island. My name is Ann Lowe, and I have been a film festival committee member for almost 8 years. Myself and my husband, David Lowe, are proud sponsors of this film. I'd like to take a moment to also thank the film's other sponsors, Diane R. Katz and Harold Lowenheim. As a reminder, all films are available virtually through the 31st of this month, and we have a few more in-person screenings left for this year's festival. Pass holders and six-pack holders, please be sure to reserve your tickets at the Loft Cinema as soon as possible. That's for tomorrow night's program. We are delighted to welcome my dear friend, Rabbi Yosef Lopez, to moderate the conversation with our panelists. I'll now turn it over to Rabbi Lopez.
Thank you so much, Anne. Good evening. It's very nice to be here. My name is Rabbi Yosef Lopez, and I am the rabbi and teacher at the Tucson Community Kollel, where I am leading an effort to revive the Beit Midrash of Old Sefarad. I'm also the director of adult education at Congregation Beit Shalom, and I teach 7th grade Judaics at the Tucson Hebrew Academy. I was interested in moderating this post-film program because Old Sefarad is a special place outside of time. The vicious attack on Old Sefarad, whom the Xuetas are a part of, has left the Jewish world bereft of a strong and glorious tradition. If revived, this tradition and its people would bring an almost revolutionary understanding to today's Jewish masses. The return of the Xuetas show that there is something about the stories of conversos that tells us a lot about what it means to be Jewish, and shows us that the revival of Old Sefarad is still possible. I am pleased to be in conversation with Dani Rotstein, the film's producer, protagonist, and co-director, Ofer Laszewicki, co-director, journalist, and additional camera, and Felipe Wolokita, co-director, director of photography, and editor. I have some questions, and there, hello, good evening, I can see you now. I have some questions, and the audience should feel free to type into the chat any questions that you may have, and I will present them to Dani and Felipe. And is Ofer here also?
We're looking for him. He's probably coming on in a little bit.
Beseder. So we can get started with this question then. How did you all come to know each other? Dani,
sure. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you and toda rabah to a wonderful film festival, and so appreciative for selecting our film and being able to be here for the conversation. So thank you so much. I don't know, Felipe, if you want to say.
Yeah,
hello.
Just to say thank you. Thank you for receiving us here. You're listening to me? It's good, the sound? Yes, okay. So
yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here and glad to have this conversation.
Absolutely. So how did you two meet?
Well, basically, it was in the year 2018. We had just done our second big Limud conference, and Ofer, who is a journalist, who we're talking to on the side here, trying to enter. I'm sure he'll come in very soon. Had written a news article in Aurora News. It's a news station in Israel where he was living, about our Limud conference. He had heard from a friend of his, and so he already had heard about Limud Mallorca. And it's an incredible story because my wife and our little son were going to Israel for a conference for our son's first time. He was a baby, and believe it or not, we sat next to Ofer's wife and their little daughter. So it was really b'sheret how we met on a plane to Israel. Ofer was not on the plane. And our baby started talking, through through the seats, and so we started speaking to one another. We found out that Ofer's wife, Georgina, is from Catalonia. We connected the dots, and that was how Ofer and I started speaking, quite often via WhatsApp. And basically, I'd said, you've written such a great article about Limud. Why don't you should come to Mallorca and document what's happening in September. We have all these events coming up, and basically from writing an article, it very quickly turned to him involving Felipe. Ofer and Felipe had worked together before, and really, really incredibly quickly, within about 3 months, we had raised funding to get Ofer and Felipe to fly over and to be with us, and that's how we filmed Xueta Island in actually 10 days time. People don't realize that it was such a short window of time with lots of events that we were documenting.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Dani, why did you decide to make this film?
Thank you so much for the question, Rabbi Yosef, and for everyone here participating. It actually was an investigative project. We had just been elected to the synagogue. Lots, as you can see, differing opinions, lots of different players in the community. And I had spoken with Felipe and Ofer about coming over and doing interviews to find out, where, I just want to make sure everyone can see me. Yeah, okay. Where this community wants to go and grow, right? Like, what does Mallorca Judaism look like in 5 years? What does it look like in 10 years? And so it's very important, and Felipe, I'm sure, can speak to this as well, that I was not in attendance for any of the other interviews except for my own, right? Because I'm a part of the story, because I'm on the board, and because I'm, like I said, I'm living here. It would have compromised the interviews if I was there asking or listening or doing the questions. So it was really incredible that Felipe and Ofer, in a short period of time, got to connect with all of our characters and basically be welcomed into their homes, and to conduct interviews, so that later, we would be able to create a film that hopefully could show everyone how, if we work together, we can do great things. So it really was not as much a reason to, of course, share the history of the Xuetas and let the world know about it, which we felt was very important, but also like a very intentional project to hopefully find out, what everyone is thinking and where the community can go to.
Wonderful. And it looks like we have Ofer on here with us now. Good evening. Good to see you. Welcome. We were just discussing the catalyst for the reason why the movie was made. What was how everybody met, and Dani connected the dots for all of us of how the two of you met and how Felipe became part of the project, and it's actually amazing, because one of the questions is how long because you just said that the project took 10 days to film, but overall, how long did the entire project take, starting from the researching the topic until the film was released? Because I imagine that was more than 10 days.
Much more. I think Dani started the research when he got to Mallorca, when he went to live there. No, that was the starting point of the research in 2014. I don't know, 15.
Yeah.
And then in August, we made a promotion video to raise funds. September, we shoot. And then we came back. I live in Israel. I'm from Brazil, I'm from Rio de Janeiro. And I live in Israel from like 15 years here in Israel. Here I met Ofer. We started to work together. Also, I'm a cameraman, Ofer a journalist. And then we came back to Israel and started the editing process. It took us like a year, more or less, to edit, like 10 months to edit all the project. We also got a script writer in the process, Marta Hierro, who wrote the script for the movie. It was also very important to help us to put together the story, because it was very intensive, 10 days 3-4 interviews per day, how the people, like a lot of information to process, and how to tell this story in the best, in the most emotional way, the most true way. Like that's the idea. And then in end of 2000, and then we got the pandemic also to make the things a little bit complicated to the whole world and also to the movie. And in the end of 2020, we end the movie. That was the time schedule.
Beautiful. Thank you. In the making of the film, whether it was the research, the interviewing, was there anything that surprised you?
Pass it over to Ofer.
Hello, can you hear me well?
I can hear you very well, yes.
Perfecto. Hello, Yosef. Hello, Felipe, Dani, and everyone out there. Excuse me, it's a bit late here in Barcelona, so I'm still asleep. Something that surprised me, yes, of course, a lot of things were surprising about this story and the whole project. But more specifically for me, and I think that for Felipe too, as two journalists or cameramen coming from Israel to Mallorca to discover this unique story, for me was really surprising to see a really unique Jewish community, small but very rich, and also to see firsthand how the usual dilemmas of Jewish life or Jewish communities that we're used to face in Israel, such as different interpretations of how to practice religion, how to pray in the synagogue, who is Jew or who is not so Jew or not a kosher Jew. For me, was amazing and really shocking and surprising to come to Mallorca and realize that all these kind of debates also happen in a tiny island in the Mediterranean. And for sure, all this revival of Jewish life, all this return of the Xuetas to their ancestors' faith, I think it's something really unique for Jews from Israel like Felipe and me coming to Spain. Was I don't know if there are more stories like that around the world, but for us was like a really intense 10 days journey, and then the whole process until we created and we edited all the material. But yeah, nowadays it's almost 4 years since we shoot that documentary, and I'm still moved by this story.
Wow, it's had a lasting impact on you.
Definitely.
I'll tell you something that surprised me while I was watching it. Not so much surprised me, but it was nice to see a connection. It was when you were you were talking with the baker, the cooker, the chef, who was showing different types of traditional foods that had been appropriated by Christians for different holidays, such as Christmas and Easter. And he was demonstrating an empanada, showing an empanada and how it's basically a lunchbox for Shabbat. And what I think most people find surprising is that empanada is an ancient dish, ancient 500, 600 years, but it's also mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch, Maran Yosef Karo writes the word empanada because he was from Spanish-speaking Jews. And what's very funny is that whenever I learned this halakha with Jews from America, will say, who don't know how to, they'll say empanada, or I'm not sure what this thing is. It's an old thing that nobody eats anymore today. But here you can see that it's a living tradition for the Mallorcan Jews and for the Xuetas, and it's a part of their history, the culinary little clues that show them the original history from where they come from.
That's amazing, Rabbi. And I just want to comment that Pinchas, not the chef in the bakery, but Pinchas, the chef of the community,
yes,
talks about how basically the Shulchan Aruch and seeing the words empanadas, I think, brought him back. It was part of his return is through the gastronomy, and he talks about how the Torah is the best or the biggest recipe book in all of the
I thought
land.
that was a very interesting way of putting it. It's the biggest recipe book that you have. I thought that was very, very insightful. So we can see that some people connect very differently. He was connecting through the gastronomy. We saw others people connecting through the identity. I am Jewish, and that was what's meaningful for them. And others having to go through the process of return, they found that meaning. As the filmmakers, as the people and the crew, what was the most meaningful part for you of creating the film? What connected you to the story in a personal way?
I'll just quickly answer very, very quickly, saying that, you know, when I started coming to Mallorca, I still have one of the questions coming up. I can tell the reason of why I got there in a little bit, but really quickly, for me, it was kind of a mirror to speak to people who know this identity within their family for, 500, 600 years ago, and to be wanting to return to it, to return to the faith of their ancestors. I think just woke something up in me saying, wow, how lucky I am to have been born into being Jewish, because I really do believe it's Jews by choice and Jews by chance, and I'm a Jew by chance. And so just for me personally, hearing their stories, learning about the knife that was passed down through generations, like seeing how remnants of Judaism have trickled its way down against all odds, basically has re-inspired something in me to connect and to learn more and share more about our faith and culture.
Beautiful.
I will add one idea. For me was really shocking and really weird to realize this weird form of anti-Semitism, because actually this group of people, the Xuetas, were discriminated or were hated even without being Jews themselves. They were only like descendants, but technically and in their way of life, they were Christians like all of their neighbors. And it shows how deeply rooted is this hatred towards Jews and Judaism in Spain, sadly. And as some friend told me, I don't remember when or where, but in Spain, we don't need Jews to fuel anti-Semitism. And this case of Mallorca and the story of the Xuetas really reminded that for me. I don't know. It's important to note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he talked about identity. I think it's a central point in the movie. Like also for me, also the anti-Semitism, and also for me the opportunity to document a Jewish community. It's a very small Jewish community, like a microcosmos. That what I know from Rio de Janeiro or from other communities, all the dilemmas, all the conflicts, all the characters are there. So it was very interesting to see it in another context, in another reality in the beautiful island of Mallorca. So also this is also very connecting. Like I was talking with the people, we were talking with the people, and I knew more or less what they have to say. Like the identity questions that they have there is the same that we faced on Brazil or in other places in the world.
Right. One of the striking things that I thought when I was watching the film was how beautiful the scenery is there, the way the sunlight hits the beach when it's set, the water when it's setting, and just to think of also the terrible things that have happened to the people who were descended there, and the trauma that they carry with them, and that they have the courage to come and to reconnect to those roots. That's very, very moving, and it's something that fascinates me. I love to see. So I thank you for documenting that and making it possible for others to learn about the Xuetas and to learn therefore about the other conversal communities in our all shared Jewish history.
It's I just want to jump in and say, Rabbi, it's an incredible point you make, and one that I never really thought of, that this idea of like double identity, what looks like something on one side but is really something else on the other. I mean, I think that's a part of what inspired me to start doing these tours and tell the story and walking around the old city center, because there's not really a lot of signage, or you just wouldn't know if you walk around by yourself.
Right.
It's an awful comparison, and it's not something that I'm doing intentionally. But when you go to visit, sadly, to concentration camps, or if you're in Poland or Germany, they kept it the way it is. It's not hard to imagine the atrocities that have taken place there, where it is hard to imagine that when you're on the beaches here under a palm tree with a cocktail in your hand,
Right.
And so I think that's important, that just because everything looks so glossy and clean, hey, history has happened here, and we need to talk about that.
Absolutely. We have some questions that are coming in the chat, and one of the popular ones is asking why, Dani, you decided to move to Mallorca. What drew you there? What brought you there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what I was mentioning before about meeting Ofer's wife and baby on the plane. Really, this project as a whole, I felt was definitely guided by an exterior force, what have you. I moved to Spain. I lived in Madrid when I was in college, and I was in New York working as a TV commercial producer. And I basically, through a friend, found out about a job in Mallorca. Had nothing to do with Jewish community. I don't know if I say it in the film or not, but I really did believe that I was going to be the only Jewish person living on the island. And then once I got there and started working on producing TV commercials with this company called Palma Pictures, that's when I found out that there was a synagogue there. And so I went to the synagogue and found out, about this idea of the Xuetas, like the first day, because they weren't counting all the men that were there as a minyan. We had 14 men, and they said, "Oh, we don't have a minyan. We don't have the number 10. We're skipping the Kaddish." And that's when I saw that they weren't counting all the men in the Orthodox shul there. And so little by little, I felt, learning and researching and reading books and speaking to people. And that's how I got into the Jewish community, and later on, the film took place.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I'm going to read some of these other questions here. Has the documentary been viewed in Mallorca? And if so, can you tell whether it has helped to grow the Jewish community on the island?
No, probably you will answer better, Dani, but for sure it has been shown. Actually, I came to join Dani for the first screenings in Mallorca. It was still during the pandemic, and also we had the pleasure to sell the movie to the National Autonomic TV of Mallorca. So it was seen by a couple of thousands of people for sure here in Mallorca, and we have positive feedbacks. Also, not with some controversy also too. But probably Dani will kind of answer better if it helped to grow or not the local community.
Yeah, I would. It's true that this is just recently, by the way, maybe 4 months ago, right around Rosh Hashanah. Last Rosh Hashanah is when the local TV channel premiered the film, and I think it was something like 46,000 households tuned in, which is incredible to imagine. I think it's helped the community learn more about the roots, especially the expats that are living here. We did many different screenings, and many different Israelis or English speakers, Germans, French speakers who are Jewish who live on the island, were able to learn about the history. Has it been growing the community? I wouldn't necessarily. I think other initiatives have been taking place. Like we've had the mood getting bigger, we've had more people coming to our conferences. One of the most incredible effects, as you saw at the end of the film in the epilogue, is that Rav Nisan ben Abraham, who he himself is Xueta, just 2 years ago, and not even a little bit less, we were able to find funding from Madrid to support us in having a rabbi, and he comes 10 days out of every month and is with us for the holidays. And this is so impactful, to think about the first ever rabbi in 600 years who's originally from Mallorca leading the Mallorcan Jewish community again. It's very symbolic, That being said, as Ofer was alluding to, not everything is perfect, and so we do have members who aren't connecting with the fact that there's an ultra-Orthodox rabbi. There's many secular Jews living on the island, and so we feel that as long as we have the religious institution available and that we are able to observe Judaism, then we can do other events such as conferences or concerts. We just actually had the first ever, just a month ago, a Hanukkah public ceremony where the city hall co-sponsored an event, and we had a huge menorah, and the rabbi flew in from Israel. And even though it was the World Cup final, we had 0 Jewish Argentinians there and 0 Jewish French members of the community. We still had probably around 400 people that came out to the public square to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah with us. So would that have happened without the film? Of course it would. Who knows? We don't know, but I'm sure that all of these little pieces have a part to play.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Has the general population started to change their negative attitudes towards the Xueta community since it's become so revitalized and there's been so much attention on it? Or how has that been working out?
I think it's important to note that even the local population in Mallorca, most of them are not even aware nowadays of this issue. And it's important also. Like, we put a lot of passion to try to explain as better as possible this story. And it's a really, on my point of view, it's a really strong and powerful story, especially those Xuetas coming back to religion. But I had I always remember a conversation that I had. I think we were with Felipe in a music show over there in Mallorca, and I explained to someone what we were doing there, and the girl told me, look, I'm Xueta also, and she showed her nose, like to show that she had like some kind of Jewish roots, but like making fun of it, making like a joke. But what I wanted to point out is that there are like thousands of descendants of Xuetas today in Mallorca that are not even aware of their roots, or are not interested, or simply people stopped to talk about. So people who are, interested in history, historians, people like Dani Rotstein for sure, and fortunately the local authorities are working towards a better recognition of this tragic story. But mainly in general, or at least it's what we felt when we were there, it's not like a really mainstream story. Simply people stopped to talk about, they moved on. And if you take it out from Mallorca to the rest of Spain, it's really parallel. I mean, I grew up in Barcelona, and even as a Jewish person, and of course interested on Jewish issues or story, barely we ever heard about the Inquisition. During all my education, during all my adult life, I never heard about these issues in Barcelona, in Madrid. Of course, if you dig and if you try to find out by yourself, you will find, but it's really complicated. Spain is not a country that acknowledges their own tragedies. And so it's for me, it's important to speak out about this.
Absolutely. It helps to get the story out there, and it could help people. It can help people change their minds if they do have a negative.
I would just add very quickly, Rabbi, that remember the scene in the film where Laura, the young historian, is on the tour and someone yells out, hey,
yes,
enough with the Xuetas,
Yes.
What people don't realize is that actually the person who was yelling was Xueta herself. That's an older woman who has lived on the street for a very long time, knew Laura because she grew up there. And it wasn't someone who's not Xueta who is like anti-Xueta or anti-Semitic. It's themselves who were like, let's pass this already, like pasar página. Let's, in Spanish, it's like, let's move past this page and keep going. Stop talking about the past. So as you can see, certain members of the Xueta community, especially the older ones, and very few of them are interested in returning and connecting this identity. As Ofer says, the vast majority, would rather sweep it under the rug and move forward. So it's complicated, right? How do you share a history, share a story that perhaps the descendants themselves don't want it to be shared?
When you say move forward and be like pasar página, is that in the sense of like they want to assimilate into just being Mallorcans and not have to acknowledge this Jewish part of their, okay. Wow.
A story that we didn't get to really expand on in the film was an interview we did with a woman named Jacqueline Tobias. She's a French Jewish member of the community, been there for 40 years. She talks about how they almost put a memorial in the 1990s in the city center, not where it is now, that they placed 4 years ago, which is like where the Autos de Fe took place, but it's like kind of outside the city and very few people kind of go by there. But in the actual Old Jewish Quarter where I do the walks. And it was going to be this beautiful monument. They were going to put the 15 names up again and really do a purposeful acknowledgement of this tragedy. And it got canned. That idea got, canceled because the people that complained the most were the Xuetas themselves, who still were living in that area, saying, hey, no, we just got our names off that list. Don't put us back on. We don't want our names to continue in infamy, our children, our grandchildren to suffer the same thing we did. No, let's please. We're like everyone else now. We're Catholics. We're Mallorquin. That what's past is past. Moving on.
Right. Near the end of the film, you mentioned that the community center, the Jewish community center, was a center for every community that was budding there. If people wanted to have tefillah with a mehisa, they had tefillah with mehisa. If they wanted to have, as you said, a kumbaya, a guitar revi, they could have that in another room. 4 years on, how is that working? How is the dynamics of the different sides of the community working with each other?
Well, like I said, when we became members of the board, we had kind of 3 objectives. And one was to have a Shabbat dinner once a month at like a vegetarian restaurant around here. And we did that before the pandemic. Limud was kind of organizing these really beautiful 40-person, 50 people Shabbat dinners to get a rabbi, because we knew that with a community without a rabbi, not that it's not possible. It's many communities do it, but in the end, when you have questions about halakha more than anything, everyone suddenly becomes a rabbi, right? And so that creates for controversy. And the last thing, which we just did last year, was a children's program. On Sundays of every month, have the children of the community get together. We have 2 Israeli professors who are doing kids' activities. So all 3 of those objectives took place. And I will say that the dream of the JCC is put on hold for now, just because there isn't a really demand or need for it yet. Right now, the synagogue has become far more open since we've been involved, since the documentary has come out. So really, if anyone is interested, the synagogue kind of fills that space right now that people can go to. And I think as the tourism grows, as we now have, by the way, a little plug, I guess, Newark, New Jersey has direct flights in the summer, which just opened up last summer, New Jersey to Mallorca. And they say that they'll be opening Atlanta to Mallorca direct and Miami. Who knows, one day Arizona, let's see how it goes. And so I think as this story gets out, I do believe that there's going to be potential for creating a larger, more progressive, expansive community center, as I was talking about in the film.
I really loved the idea. I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I think as you said in the dream, it can really help the community integrate, because they are all Xuetas, but they're all being pulled in different directions as to what that means to be, especially as they reintegrate into the Jewish community. And it can be very, very difficult. I see it a lot where people are reclaiming their Jewish past, but they don't know what that means or what does that look like. And they can be susceptible to putting up their own walls and pushing each other out. And hopefully that's not the case, and that it can be, like I said, a return to old Sepharad. And what I mean by that is a kind of a community that gives and takes, that lives with each other, that knows that there's differences between them, but that they're still one kahal, one edam. So that's my hope.
I'll just add in terms of like a fun fact for everyone to know. Just this past October, Ofer, I'm sure you saw this in Catalonia, the first ever female rabbi was ordained in Germany, but she's originally from Catalonia. So, as the Jewish world also changes here in Spain and people see the diversity that can exist within the Jewish faith and Jewish culture, I think more people who are not connected to Judaism, like Xuetas or non-Xuetas, will be basically what you said, Rabbi, to understand that there's many different versions and become more open and inclusive.
Absolutely. How can the Tucson Jewish community stay in contact with the community in Mallorca?
Well, luckily, Jennifer and I actually just started a course together. The JCC Global program has a course on Jewish peoplehood. So that's been a very cool, exciting coincidence that we connected before the course. And so we'll definitely be in touch. And, I think just in terms of staying up to date, both Felipe, Ofer, and myself, we manage the Xueta Island social media, Instagram, Facebook. So there's no shortage of ways of staying in touch or getting on our newsletters to learn about different updates that are going to be coming out of Mallorca. And as travel begins to continue opening up and up, of course, feel always free to get in touch with us and come visit for a visit in person.
Fantastic. We look forward. I hope to visit myself. I see a question here directed towards me. If you don't mind, I would like to answer because it is connected to Xueta names. So my name Lopez, my alcunia, my family name is Lopez, and that is a Xueta name. I do not have any connection to the Xuetas. As far as I know, my family was from southern Spain, from Andalusia, and left. I'm not sure exactly when. I don't have a clear record of that. But as far as I know, I don't have any connection. But you don't have to have a Xueta last name to support and appreciate Xueta culture and to be excited about the revival that we see in the community and how it can bring back a lost part of our Jewish identity that will hopefully make us a little bit more whole, I hope. I see that Jennifer's also put in the chat your Facebook link for your social media for the community on Facebook. So anyone who is interested, please click there, follow them there. And before I let each of you go, I would like to ask for each of you, what is the next project that you are working on?
That's a good question. I think that we all
Ofer, I was going to say you should speak about what you're doing right now, which is really exciting to share with everyone.
What do you mean?
Oh,
Dani?
no, all of the travels that you've been doing.
Well, actually, yeah. Well, I am a journalist and foreign correspondent. Actually, I'm based in Barcelona, but I'm constantly flying to Israel. I work there, trying to explain as better as possible what's going on in this crazy piece of land. And I don't know if I have some specific. Well, actually, yes. We started a podcast in Spanish language about Jewish issues, Israel, Israelis, Palestinians, blah blah blah, in Espanol. Which for me is starting to be really interesting. I share commentaries along another Spanish Jew-speaking journalist.
What's the name of your podcast?
It's called Al Ayam, which in Hebrew means, I will write it here. I don't know if someone understands Spanish here, but that's the name. You can find out in Spotify, YouTube. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, all this kind of social media. And I'm thinking also, actually I'm starting to think about a book about my own family roots, to explore all my murdered family during the Shoah here in Europe, try to go to Poland and Germany and I'm starting like my own personal research, and probably it will end with the writing of a new book, which will be my second one. But leat leat, as we say in Hebrew, it takes time. And that's it. I mean, to try to keep connected to all these kind of stories that really motivate me to keep telling stories.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like very exciting projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually, I live in Israel, so I'm a freelance filmmaker and a cinematographer. I have different projects going on. I work for the Portuguese television here as a cameraman and editor, making stories about Israel. Also, freelance for the Brazilian television, also producing documentaries. We have a one last year about the life of Jesus that was very interesting, like I can say from a Jewish perspective, like a Jewish man living here in the land of Israel. So it was really, really interesting in the Brazilian television, like a 6 episodes documentary, and expanding that to a channel on YouTube about also religious places in Israel and other places, and open for new projects. Hopefully soon.
Fantastic. And that's in Portuguese, I'm assuming.
Yes. I work in Portuguese, Spanish, English, and Hebrew, like different outlets and different clients and different people.
I'll have to learn Portuguese so I can see your series on Jesus and
You have in the
podcast, but I'll have to learn.
It's on Global Play. That is like the streaming service of the Brazilian television Global that you have there.
Thank you. Sounds exciting.
Felipe is also forgetting a very important project about becoming a father since the film has been made.
Mabruk,
a lot have changed. Thank you. That's the most important project, that's for sure.
That's going to take years to complete. It's almost
the most demanding project for sure.
And Dani, I see you put Ofer's podcast in the chat, so we thank you for that. And Dani, how about you? What do you?
Yeah, well, we it's kind of like in past tense, you know. We had a big project last year. I basically switched out Felipe and Ofer as my traveling buddies to my wife and our son Oren, and we're very blessed to have been able to take the Shemitah year. Last year was a Shemitah year for the world, and we really needed a rejuvenation of soul, of spirit, especially after being pretty under lockdown with the pandemic. And we produced this beautiful film, but then we wanted to share it. So it was a dream of ours. You know, Oren he just turned 3 years old. So the older he gets, the harder it is to travel. We went actually traveling through Latin America for about 7 or 8 months, more or less. And we visited Brazil, Mexico, Ecuador, and Colombia. Those were like the 4 places, and the United States to see my family. And while we were there, we connected with comunidades emergentes, you know, this idea of emerging communities, which is far more progressed, for example, than here in Mallorca. You know, there you have, in Colombia, for example, if there's a Jewish population of 4,000 in the whole country, 2,000 are people who have returned to Judaism or who converted to Judaism. And
wow.
It's a phenomenal story, one that I took my iPhone and did some mini interviews. So with the help from above, we're hoping to, you know, see where this project can go into, these interviews, this idea of learning and visiting not just Mallorca, not just Colombia, but many different areas around the world that have this phenomenon, this experience of people wanting to connect to Judaism, and what's our relationship with that. I mean, as I'm sure you're familiar in Arizona, right next door in New Mexico, and in many places along the southern coast of the United States, there are people interested in connecting to their roots, or just interested Christians who want to learn more and deeper about Judaism. And so this is, in my opinion, a really important topic to be looking at as we plan for the future of the Jewish people. Do we want to, when someone knocks on the door, do we want to open the door and say, come on in, or, be a bit more guarded and closed down? This is, I think, a decision or a topic that we should be talking about. Right.
A rabbi that I learned with, he learned growing up, he grew up in Argentina. And he grew up, there wasn't as big as emerging communities in Argentina at the time. It was mostly communities from Europe or from Syria and the Ottoman Empire. But one of his teachers had said that the emerging communities, who else, the emerging communities and the conversos, who else could this be but the 10 tribes of Israel returning back to us across the river and coming to enrich us? So it's really great that you're highlighting these communities and bringing their attention to the Jewish world. Thank you so much, Dani, Ofer, and Felipe. It was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I learned a lot, and I really appreciated the movie. I really found it very insightful, very informative, and I just thank you so much for all your work. I'll turn it now over to Jennifer Selko, who will wrap up the program this evening.
I will just add the last bit that today, and Ofer and Felipe don't know because we haven't got a chance to catch up yet. We are finalizing the album, the music, the soundtrack, for the film. So hopefully that will be on Spotify very soon. And as I said earlier, if you can follow us on social media, we'll be getting out those updates. So you can be listening to the sounds of Mallorca, and we hope to see.
That's fantastic. I really did enjoy those romances. They were very beautifully produced and sung. So I'm happy to hear that.
Well, lovely. Thank you so much, Dani, Felipe, and Ofer. Thank you so much, Rabbi Lopez. I want to share that our door prize winner this evening is going to win a copy of George Sand's Winter in Mallorca. And our winner this evening is Jill Hurwitz. So congratulations, Jill. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us in the middle of the night, very early morning, to share your story with us. It was very enlightening to learn from you. And Rabbi Lopez, thank you so much for bringing so much of yourself into this conversation. I just want to remind everyone, if you plan on joining us at the Loft Cinema tomorrow night for the in-person screening of The Levees of Monticello, please do go ahead and reserve your in-person ticket this evening. And you're also welcome to watch virtually, and the post-film program will be streamed live if you're not able to be with us in person. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.